Hello, ECO2000 students. Back to you for lesson 4 on cost-benefit analysis. This will be a relatively shorter video for me because I want you to focus on the excellent cost-benefit analysis video series by the Conservation Fund, which I've sent you, posted the URL and announcements. It's a very good one. We could march through it again, but that series is very good. So what I'm going to do with this video is just give you some of the context, okay, relative to your design group projects, okay? So let's get started on that now, okay? So what is cost-benefit analysis? Well, cost-benefit analysis is really a methodology that answers a couple of questions. Where should we use our scarce resources? And if we use them there, are we actually losing money because we have opportunity costs somewhere else where it would have been better to use our money to invest our money to make even more money relative to the first option, all right? And that's what cost benefit does. Is how much money do we have? If we invested here, will we get a return? If we invested it somewhere else, would we have achieved a better return? Therefore, if we chose A over B, we would have an opportunity cost associated with the use of those scarce resources, right? Which would be the difference between the money we could make in A and the money we could make in investment B, all right? So again, right, scarcity and opportunity cost is what cost-benefit analysis looks at. Scarce resources. Say we have $1 million. Should we invest our $1 million there? If we do, will that return us a profit? Right? But that's not the whole answer, right? Because we might have been able to invest that $1 million somewhere else and made more of a profit. If we made the mistake of going for A and not B, the difference between the profit of A and the profit of B becomes our mistake, our opportunity cost. We cost ourselves that opportunity by going for A instead of B. So what could better define a financial investor in the built environment, right? Is somebody who looks at it and says, I have $1 million. Do I put it here or do I put it there? If I put it there, is it the best option I have, or should I put it somewhere else? Okay? And cost-benefit analysis explores that whole thing, right? It's a set of generally accepted methodological rules about how to identify, analyze, and present economic information to decision makers as one basis to make choices between options. It's important to understand that cost-benefit analysis can say, will we make a return on our scarce resources? Is that the best return we could make relative to the other options? But that's not all of what decision making in life is about, right? Decisions are also made on the other basis. Like some investors might say, yeah, we could make a bit more money doing it this way, but that's not very smart because we would ruin our brand amongst the public, or there could be other problems, or we just simply want to be seen as good corporate citizens, or all kinds of choices are made, right, based on other criteria in addition to just money, right? But let's face it, money drives the economy, right? Money decision makers are going to be influential. Money is going to be influential in almost every decisions that corporations make, but it's not the only criteria for making decisions. Corporations every day make decisions that are not completely informed by money. Money certainly drives a lot of it, but they can also, make responsible, socially responsible decisions, environmentally responsible decisions, and so on, right? So cost-benefit analysis is what I'm saying is the cost-benefit analysis is one input in decision-making, not the final say on everything. But any client that you face in your business, once you become active in interior design, is going to be obviously interested in the financial questions, okay? But if you were trying to convince people to be involved in the green build-out environment, okay, then clearly money is you still have to be financially responsible. But you have to also provide them with a better understanding of the benefits that come with this type of an investment as opposed to an off-the-shelf type of investment, okay? And create the conditions for green built environment decisions to be made, okay? And that might not all be money. Yeah, sure, you might make a little bit more money by doing it this way, but the risks to your corporate brand, to your employee satisfaction, to other factors would say, you know what, let's take the green path, okay? And that's why we're interested in cost-benefit analysis as one equation, all right? But let's get into it, all right? So what are the steps? So I'm going to go through the basic steps so you can understand the Conservation Fund series of videos in the right context, right? Typically, cost-benefit analysis involves these steps. Describe the issue, the problem, or the opportunity. So in our case, we would be saying that when you're doing this build-out, there is an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity to do something unique. There's an opportunity to do something that's green, that's more worker-friendly, that's more engaging, that's more groovy for the market, that sells a proper message to my customers. There are all kinds of opportunities in any investment. It's not just dollar for dollar, right? I mean, we have to look at these various things. So describe the issue in your case is, the issue for us is that you could build it as a normal off-the-shelf build, but we're giving you a green build-out option. And here's why, okay? But in order to do any kind of a cost-benefit analysis, right, you need to define the scope of the analysis. Remember I said in my announcement, right, that I said that there's a need to define the scope of your analysis. I've given you the buildings that you can choose, right? And then, but I've said that you can do the entire interior design, or maybe you're going to do certain features of the building, right? As your green interior design. That scope has to be clear, because that scope of your project needs to compare with what would the alternative be, which would be the baseline off-the-shelf build, right? These need to be consistent. Their scopes need to be consistent. The scope of my proposal is this. Therefore, I need to compare it to something. As all economic analysis compares to a baseline, as I've said before, the scope of your baseline needs to be the same as your proposal, okay? So describe the objective of the proposed action. What is your objective in achieving in the green design proposal? Well, our objective is that, you know, it's going to create a better working environment. Your public recognition and your brand is going to improve with your constituency. You're going to retain employees better, whatever the argument is, but you calculate the benefits to your client, right? Why is this objective something I should even look at, okay? So you need to have a compelling argument for that, right? There has to be benefits, right? And certainly financial will be a major aspect of your client's decision making here, but not the entire aspect, right? Because the client say, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I'm going to take an opportunity cost of a little bit on this project, but look at the benefit it will have for me down the road in terms of my media advertising, in terms of my stakeholder recognition for trying to be a green company, for my brand, for my working with government over regulation. Hey, we're a responsible company, you know, we're a good corporate citizen. All the benefits that would come from going green need to be thought about in that context. It's not just dollar, right? It's not just things that can be monetized from day one. It's things that we have to talk about, all the benefits, try to monetize them, quantify them, or at least qualitatively explain them to our client as to the benefits, okay? Then there's the viable options to achieve that objective, right? If the objective is, you have a choice to make, investor. You know, you can do the same old, or you can begin to see your products as not only, functional products, but products that also spin off benefits of your corporate brand, of happier tenants, of higher rents that you can charge, all the benefits that could come from being green, right? Longer lasting products, better air quality, you know all of them, okay? Okay, but we could achieve that objectives through different approaches, right? We could choose this green option. For example, LEED is set up that right? You can go LEED bronze, LEED silver, LEED gold, right? LEED platinum, right? I mean, you have options, right? A client would typically want to see what those options are. So when you're doing your green build out, you would want to say, well, we could do the full Monty. We could go all the way, and this is the way it would look, right? Or we could do only part of it, right? So, but we'll discuss that more as we go through on our Zoom call. So what I'm talking about there, because typically when you're dealing with a client, the client doesn't want, it's very difficult, or it's dangerous actually, for the service provider to present an either or scenario, okay? It's always better to say there's a standard build, But here's sort of level one we could do on the green build out, which would be better for the following reasons. And this is why we're suggesting it has these objectives, okay? Or you could go a little bit further. You could go into step B, and this is even a greener model, and this does provide the following objectives, okay? Serve the following objectives. And then you have the full Monty version, right, which is fully decked out, and this is something that would achieve these objectives, right? But then the investor is going to sit back and say, these are all really interesting options, like your design work, very interesting. Okay, where's the beef? Okay, what's this going to cost, and how much of a benefit is it going to return to me relative to the baseline? Okay, and that's essentially what cost benefit is about. The investor's not objecting to spend the money. Absolutely, if it's going to benefit me, if my return on a normal build out is 10%, right? To get the green build out, I have to invest an extra 7% to get the green elements. But my return on investment is now going to be 15%. Great, that's fine. Let's do it, right? Because at the end, I come out with more financial resources. Plus, I have the opportunity to cater to my stakeholders, my customers, my relationship with government regulators, being seen as a responsible company, planning strategically for the future in our marketing campaign. Any number of other benefits can spin out. So the investor kind of says, sounds good to me. Let's do it. I don't mind spending the extra money if I'm going to make more money, because that's why I'm spending money in the first place, right? But sometimes we'll talk about, sometimes it's difficult to categorize all those benefits and to monetize them and for clients to understand, but we'll deal with that later on, okay? So we're describing viable options, right, for these for your client, okay? And then step 5 is identify and define the costs and benefits, direct and indirect, intended and possibly unintended for your proposal, right? I mean, these are the types of things that any cost benefit analysis, like your investor saying, your green build out concepts, they're really interesting. Great. I like them a lot, okay? But I need to know, how do the costs compare to the benefits? I mean, you're asking me to spend an extra 15% on this build out, which is fine. That's fine. If I'm going to get that and more back from my investment through some other mechanism, either in direct rental charges, I'm able to charge more rent, or I'm able to charge more membership fees, or good quality employees are scarce in the high-tech sector, and this is going to allow me to attract the best ones, or help me attract the best ones, or whatever the benefits are. But I don't mind spending the extra money on green if that's what's required, because some green designs might not even require that much more money if you're creative, right? But I need to know what the cost-benefit trade-off here is going to be, right? And only the way to answer that is you have to collect data, right? Which is what you're going to be doing in your green design projects. When I ask you to do research on benefits and that's what that is, right? If you're monetizing the benefits, great. If and if you don't have monetization, you can at least quantify the benefits. It's likely, for example, in data from the industry shows that these types of green buildings tend to have customer traffic flow that's 15% or 17% above what the other type of build would have, and you're able to convert 4 or 5% of those people to buy your product or your service. I can monetize that. I can put that in the cost-benefit analysis, okay? And there are different ways we will talk about that as we go through, okay? Then you need to describe the baseline, because all economic analysis compares to the baseline. My announcement that set out the first 6 stages of your design projects is basically consistent with this. You need that baseline. What would it cost to build out a same old off-the-shelf, only to building code design? What would it cost for products, for labor, for replacing products that wear out, that these kinds of things, right? If you're calling for a special kind of lighting, does it last longer or less? Anyway, you establish the baseline, because that becomes the comparison for your green project, because that's what an investor's going to want. You can't just lay out your proposal and the investor kind of says, You lay out your design, the investor says, yeah, pretty design. That's really nice. But I could build it for a lot less if I just do what the building code tells me to do. So why are you guys here? Like why? Because you haven't talked to me about any, you've talked to me about extra costs, but you haven't talked to me about extra benefits. So that's the way the investor's mind is going to work. So you have to show them the baseline. And then you have to show them your green design. And you have to show how, yes, they may spend a little bit more money on the green design, but their benefits will be greater than the additional money that they had to spend. That's the objective we're seeking, right? Some low threshold proposals, that's quite easy to demonstrate, right? Improved lighting, improved durability of flooring and that stuff, you can basically demonstrate on a cost benefit, done it many times, that it's valuable to go that route, okay? But as your green proposals become more complicated and more costly, all right, then justification based on benefits relative to the baseline needs to be demonstrated for any financial decision maker. The first investor you meet in the real world, you'll know that, just like that, okay? That's the way the mind thinks. That's what they are. They're business people. They invest to make money. They have no objection to investing more if they're going to make more money. They're okay with that, right? This has to be demonstrated. And unfortunately, the creative mind of a designer thinks about the creativeness of the design, thinks about the beauty of it, the functionality of it. People will like it. They'll like working there. And all those things are important to an investor. But in the final analysis, the investor's going to be looking at this and kind of saying, show me the beef. Okay? Doesn't mean that the beef is going to be all of my decision, but it's going to be a substantial chunk because I don't want to go broke. All right? So that's a very important set of considerations. So you describe the viable options in monetary or otherwise quantitative terms. If you're, typically I would not do, I'm not going to be asking you to do multiple models, but typically when I would do a cost-benefit analysis for a significant investment, I would be setting out options. Here's the baseline option we could pursue that would make your product more interesting. All right. Here's the more adventuresome one. Now we're moving into sort of fancier things, meeting areas and different kinds of lighting, and all intended to enhance productivity or enhance traffic flow or whatever the client need is, right? And here's that full decked out thing. You're going to a zero emissions building. You're doing this, and you're really going to need to capitalize it on your brand and your marketing and your all of these kinds of things, but the potential is there. And then I do the cost benefit analysis of real monetary and quantitative data, and I can say, yeah, we can do 1 and 2 in justified in monetary terms, but 3 may be a bridge too far. Maybe we're getting a little bit too sexy there. All right, so maybe we need to back off. Or it may demonstrate that if you're willing to take the risk, you could do all the way to the full Monty, option 3. You could. And the reason I teach people to do these options is because, if you go into a client and you only have one option, then it's a yes or no, right? It's a yes or no. It's a dot or a dot dot. That's it. Okay? You don't create an option for debate development. For example, if I go in and present something to a client, I have some options, right? Some scaled out options where I do a cost benefit spreadsheet for each one of them. Then the client can kind of say, well, I really like your 3, but I'm hanging out there a little bit too much for my comfort level right now. So tell you what, let's try option 1 for now. Let's do it on this building. I'm going to be building lots more in the future. Let's do it on this house or this building. Let's do it this much because I think that I can sell that to my clientele. And you've shown me that I can make a bit of extra money on this. Plus it helps me with my brand and all that. So the financial decision maker goes, yeah, you know what? Let's give the first option a shot. And the beauty of the fact that you came with different options is that while they didn't take option 2 and option 3, what they did do is say, I'm going to try you on option 1. And now I know what your vision is for option 2 and 3. So if this works, I'm going to come back to you for some of my other options. Okay? And that's what you're trying to do in business. Let's face it, right? You enjoy design. You have artistic qualities. I work with many of them, right? And at that point, that's what you're selling. That's the real beef, right? But when the financial decision maker is sitting in the room, they're kind of going, really like this designer. but this person has no clue of the economics. You don't want that to happen, all right? Fortunately, many of you will end up, if you're working for larger firms, will be ending up working with teams who will bring different expertise to the table, and that's why you're set up at groups and you're going to be performing roles that simulate that, all right? So then you would prepare your cost-benefit analysis, accounting statement, and so on. We'll get into that more as we go along, and then your reporting, and that's how cost-benefit analysis essentially functions. Whether you're working with somebody to set up a hazardous waste disposal site, or build a new building, or invest in a road, it doesn't matter. Cost-benefit steps largely remain the same. Okay. And in some cases you're not providing options because what's needed is understood and the engineering required for that is understood. And so in those cases, providing options doesn't add a lot of value. So you just show the cost-benefit analysis. Should the road go here or should the road go there? That would be a case where those are your options rather than the design of the road, okay? In terms of its features, how much base it has, and so on, okay? But in other cases, you on the same building, you might present a client with options because it allows you an opportunity to portray your expertise and creativity, whereas you're not giving the client an opportunity to say yes or no to one option, right? You're giving them an opportunity to see what the capabilities is of your vision, and you choose the option that fits the day in terms of what the financial investor is prepared to invest, how confident they are in the investment. A lot of investors will kind of go, really like this direction, guys. This is really good. But let's do one until I get a better handle on this, or until I have more time to train my builders, or until there can be any number of reasons. But what you've done now is you've presented your client with an opportunity to engage more than one option. So they don't just say no and usher you out the office. They kind of say, yeah, okay, let's take option one. I'll give you guys a try. Let's take option one. And then if it goes good, maybe in the next building, we'll take elements of your option two and option three. Okay? So you're building an understanding of what's going on with the client, okay? So in your projects, as I said in my announcement video, right? I mean, you have the issue, and your issue is the greener built-out environment. Okay, that's your assignment. All right. So let's pretend you have you're working for a design firm, and a financial investor, big one, well-established one, comes into your firm and says, "I want to use you guys to define a building, or design a building for me, including its interior design elements for a law firm or an accounting firm or whatever the case may be." And we would like to be an up-to-date, kind of groovy, modern office. We want to attract good young people. Give me some ideas. This is what you may get, right? Give me some ideas. And so your boss then comes to you and says, well, you know what? Let's give them some of our stuff on green design and the new work environment and new meeting areas and new and so on, all right? But let's show them that relative to what a typical basic build out would be. Let's show them the boring and then give them the juice, all right? And let's see how they buy in. But in order to do that, when you're done your design, okay, hand it over to the finance people, and we'll cost it out, and we'll do our analysis, which is essentially our cost-benefit analysis as to whether we think we can sell this to the client. And when we do sell it to the client understands the decisions we're making and we're proposing and why we're proposing them, both in financial terms, but also brand, attracting young talent to your firm, all of the other benefits that would come by going greener as opposed to the same old cubicle that you have to sit in for 10 hours a day as a young lawyer, right? 10 hours if you're lucky. More like 12 or 14 hours a day. So you have to show the client how your proposed design differs from the typical, right? I mean, why would I do this? I mean, what's the kick here? I asked you guys to put together a design. Now you're telling me you want me to spend an extra 8% or 9% to build this out. Why? And then that's when the analysis comes in, right? You're trying to convince your client that you can add more value to them than they thought they were going to get when they walked into your firm. Okay. Okay, what are you planning to change, and how are you planning to change things? What is your objective? Why? Like, why? Your client says, what, why? Why all this fancy stuff? Does this stuff really work? You guys have data that shows it really works? I don't mind spending the extra 8%. It's not a problem, but you got to give me something here. Like, why would I? What's the benefits? What am I getting out of this? That's all in financial investors, right? Every single one I've ever met. Okay? And for good reason, right? That's why they're investors. That's why they have the money to invest, because they're shrewd with their money most of the time. Not always. I've seen some bad investors. So what factors or variables most define your design as difficult from the status quo, right? Are there available systems, standards, guidelines, or influential studies to help you plan, define, communicate the change you are proposing? What are other studies saying about people that went green design? Is it more efficient? Does it last longer? They're better at attracting employees. They sell their brand to the public. Their customer approval ratings went up. Whatever we can find to support the value that we're adding to our client. Okay? That's the key. All right? But then you have to establish, just like I said in the announcement, what is the current baseline for the factors or variables that are key to your proposal. That's essentially scope, right? Baseline products or services used would cost this much to buy, would cost this much to operate, cost this much to maintain, generally last this long, returns the typical well-established benefits over the life of a product or service. That's your standard, build. That all economic analysis needs to be compared with that baseline, because that's what the financier is going to do. He's going to say, well, look, I know I built 7 buildings. I built them the standard way. Why are you guys proposing something that's 8% over? So you might as well define that for the client, and so the client knows that you understand that. And now you're selling them on why they should do better. Okay? So what are the new factors or variables that are key to your proposed design? In other words, what are you suggesting that's different from the baselines? Are new products or services used? Cost this much to buy? Cost this much to operate? Cost this much to maintain? Designed to last this long? How do these differential costs compare to the baseline? You have to tell the client that. The reason we're 8% over is because we're doing this, and this. And in a minute, ma'am or sir, I'm going to explain to you what the benefits of that are for your company. Okay? So what benefits do you anticipate for your design relative to the typical baseline? How many of these can be monetized or at least quantified, as I said in my announcement? How long will these benefits be realized? Typically, that is the life of a product or service. In other words, I'm giving you 15 years, all right? For those benefits that cannot be monetized or quantified, can they be explained qualitatively? Like I said in my announcement, right? What is the cost-benefit ratio for your proposed design compared to the typical baseline? And we'll be talking about that more later, okay? And when you're giving your presentations, I mean, these slides in 8 and 9 are there to get you thinking, but I don't want to talk about them too much because our thinking on that will involve also through our Zoom calls, okay? But this gives you some idea. Describe the project and the reason you have been asked to submit a proposal. So we're simulating, right? We're mocking a scenario that you've been asked by, you work for a firm, your group works for a firm, and you've been asked to prepare a scenario for a greener option for this client's build out, okay? Whether that be a government client or a private sector client, all right? In any of those building types that I gave in the assignment, okay? Describe the typical characteristics of a business as usual approach to this type of project. What I'm giving you now is just what would happen or previously it's how cost benefit would fit into that, all right? Portray your vision for the green build aspects of the project. The vision should be comprehensive as determined by the scope of the project that you're here to talk about. Be clear with the client that aspects of it may or may not be advanceable based on economics of the project, which you will be talking about later in your presentation. Talk about anticipated benefits of your vision relative to the baseline. Talk about anticipated cost of your visions relative to the baseline. Provide your analysis summary on the cost-benefit profile of your vision relative to the baseline. Your summary might have you concluding all elements as envisioned can go forward with benefits exceeding costs relative to the baseline. Certain elements of your vision, but not others, can go forward with benefits exceeding costs relative to the baseline. Remember I told you, low threshold option, middle of the pack option, full Monty option, right? You might set your analysis up that way. You might. Potentially omitted elements of your vision could be presented as options for the current project or move forward into the future. Remember what I told you, right? You're giving your client more of a yes, no, usher you out of the office scenario. You're giving them some options to see a vision for themselves off into the future. And one would hope, since you're in the business of providing these services, that they see you as part of that vision. Okay? So, and then typically the financial analysis would be summary in the presentation, left with the client in more detail in the real world. But, we want you to present that, an overview of it, right, in your slide presentations at the end. Plus your written document would have, the one you handed in earlier would have an annexes with your financial analysis in it, which we'll talk about more as we go along. Okay? So on that score, I'll wrap up. Don't forget to view that Conservation Strategy Fund series on cost benefit analysis. It's excellent. All right, I know there's a number of videos there, there's a dozen or more, but they're very short and they're very good. Okay, they're very good quality. All right, as somebody who's worked on cost benefit for 20 some years, it's an exceptionally good series of videos on the subject matter. All right, so we'll be seeing you next time. Take care. Bye bye now.